Welcome to Plato's Cave for our December 15, 2014 broadcast. My name is Doris Motormouth and I am your Poseidon News anchor. Japanese companies see weaker inflation outlook in blow to BOJ. Bloomberg: Japanese companies see a weaker inflation outlook than 3 months ago, challenging central bank chief Hirohiko Kuroda's effort to stoke faster price gains in the world's third biggest economy. Firms forecast annual inflation of 1.4% in a year, slower than 1.5% seen 3 months earlier, the Bank of Japan said today. They predict annual price gains of 1.6% in 3 years and 1.7% in 5 years. The BOJ boosted unprecedented easing in October to rid Japan of a deflationary mindset, Kuroda said last month. The central bank aims to change companies' views on the inflation outlook as he aims to reach a 2% target next year. Inflation expectations will probably remain around the same level for a while, Masamichi Adachi, an economist at JP Morgan Chase & Company who previously worked at the BOJ, said before the release. Falling oil prices and a weak yen will be the key factors for the price outlook. The BOJ will have to closely watch them. The yen has tumbled about 7.4% against the dollar since the central bank unexpectedly boosted its asset purchase plan in October and is down almost 13% over the past year, boosting the costs of imports and stoking inflationary pressures. The currency traded at 117.76 per dollar at 8:57 a.m. in Tokyo. Declines in oil prices have weighed on inflation. Brent crude, a pricing benchmark for more than half of the world's oil, lost 79 cents, or 1.3% yesterday, to close at $61.06 a barrel in London, the lowest settlement since July 2009. Price rises. The BOJ rejects the idea that additional monetary stimulus is needed to prevent the decline in oil prices in recent months from pulling down inflation, according to people familiar with the discussions. Yoshinoya Holdings Company will raise the price of beef bowls by 27% due to higher import costs, the company said in a statement on December 9. Consumer prices excluding fresh food, the BOJ's main inflation gauge, rose 0.9% in October from a year, stripping out the effects of April's sales tax increase. The government will put top priority on revitalizing the economy, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said as he secured a 2/3 majority in Diet's lower house with his coalition party in a December 14 election. Tankan data released yesterday showed sentiment of Japan's big manufacturers weakened, with the index falling to 12 from 13 3 months earlier. Russia increases key rate most since 1998 to stem ruble rout. Bloomberg: Russia's central bank raised its benchmark interest rate the most since the nation's 1998 default, making the announcement in the middle of the night in Moscow as policymakers seek to douse investor panic and stem a ruble rout. The central bank increased the key rate to 17% from 10.5% effective today, it said in a statement on its website. Policymakers gathered for an unscheduled meeting after a 1-point increase on December 11. This decision is aimed at limiting substantially increased ruble depreciation risks and inflation risks, the bank said in the statement. Russia's central bank raised interest rates for the 6th time in 2014 after more than $80 billion spent from its reserves failed to stop a 49% sell-off of the ruble, the world's worst performing currency this year. President Vladimir Putin, whose incursion into Ukraine's Crimea Peninsula in March prompted the US and its allies to strike back with sanctions, this month called for harsh measures to deter currency speculators. While such drastic tightening measures will inflict more pain on the economy, we have been arguing for a while that it is not about preventing recession, but a full-scale financial turmoil caused by the precipitous ruble fall, said Pieter Matthys, a currency strategist at Rabobank International in London. Ruble dropped. The ruble yesterday tumbled past 60 for the first time on record, losing 9.7% to 64.4455 a dollar. That extended its plunge this year to 49%, which overtook the Ukrainian hryvnia's drop. Brent, the grade of oil traders look at for pricing Russia's main export blend, slipped 79 cents, or 1.3%, to end the session at $61.06 a barrel on the London-based ICE Futures Europe exchange. Russia derives about 50% of its budget revenue from oil and natural gas taxes. As much as a quarter of gross domestic product is linked to the energy industry, Moody's Investors Service estimated in a December 9 report. The economy may shrink 4.5% to 4.7% next year, the most since 2009, if oil averages $60 a barrel under a stress scenario, the central bank said yesterday. Net capital outflow may reach $134 billion this year, more than double last year's total. Turkey media arrests, Erdogan rejects EU criticism. BBC Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has lashed out at the European Union after it criticized the mass arrest of opposition journalists at the weekend. The EU should mind its own business and keep its own opinions to itself, Mr. Erdogan said, denying that the raids had infringed press freedom. EU leaders have said the arrests were incompatible with European values. At least 24 journalists said to have close links with a US-based cleric are being held for plotting to seize power. Sunday's raids targeted the Zaman newspaper and Saman Ilu TV channel, which are described as close to Islamic cleric Fethullah Gulen, the spiritual leader of the Hizmet movement. A former ally of Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Mr. Gulen, who lives in self-imposed exile, is accused of running a parallel state within Turkey. Dirty operations. In a statement, EU Foreign Affairs Chief Federica Mogherini and Enlargement Commissioner Johannes Hahn said any move towards membership depended on full respect for the rule of law and fundamental rights. The raids and arrests are incompatible with the freedom of media, which is a core principle of democracy, the pair said in a statement. Zaman's editor-in-chief, who waved to staff while being arrested, is among those being held, but on Monday Mr. Erdogan responded, "What do you, Europe, know about these operations to feel yourself competent to make such comments? We have no concern about what the EU might say, whether the EU accepts us as members or not." He added that the raids had been a necessary response to dirty operations to subvert the Turkish state. Etienne Makupayan, chief advisor to Turkish Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoglu, told the BBC, "We have evidence that there was wrongdoing by some people in the Gulen movement, and we have evidence that these journalists are in the Gulen movement." The raids come days after Mr. Erdogan pledged a fresh campaign against Mr. Gulen's supporters. Over the past year, Mr. Erdogan, whose Islamist-rooted AK party has won 3 general elections since 2002, has accused so-called Gulenists in police and the judiciary of using corruption inquiries to try to topple him. Hizmet movement, Hizmet, service, is the Turkish name for what is commonly known as the Gulen movement. The movement is inspired by the teachings of Islamic preacher Fethullah Gulen, who lives in exile in the US. Mr. Gulen is a mainstream Sunni Hanafi Muslim scholar, influenced by Anatolian Sufism. There is no formal structure, but Hizmet followers are numbered in the millions, spread across more than 150 countries, first expanded into Central Asia after the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. With 2 hostages and gunmen dead, grim investigation starts in Sydney. Sydney, CNN. The deadly siege of a central Sydney cafe has ended, but the investigation is just beginning. Australian authorities stormed the cafe where a self-styled Muslim cleric had been holding hostages early Tuesday, killing the gunman. They moved in some 16 hours after the siege began, after hearing gunfire inside the Lindt Chocolate Cafe, New South Wales Police Commissioner Andrew P. Cyprian told reporters. 2 of the 17 hostages initially held by the gunman died, according to Cyprian. 5 other people were injured, including a police officer who suffered a wound to the face from gunshot pellets. He is expected to recover. Understandably, there is a lot of speculation, but it will take time to clarify exactly what happened, and why. Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott told reporters Tuesday. What did the gunman want? Why did he choose the cafe as his target? There is nothing more Australian than dropping in at the local cafe for a morning coffee, and it's tragic beyond words that people going about their everyday business should have been caught up in such a horrific incident, Abbott said. He offered his condolences to people caught in the attack and to their loved ones. These events do demonstrate that even a country as free, as open, as generous and as safe as ours is vulnerable to acts of politically motivated violence, the Prime Minister said. But they also remind us that Australia, and Australians are resilient and we are ready to respond. Gunman had violent history. The gunman was identified as Manharan Monis by an official with direct knowledge of the situation. According to his social media posts, the hostage taker appears to have embraced a radical Sunni theology. Abbott told reporters that the gunman was already well known to authorities, and that he had a long history of violent crime, infatuation with extremism and mental instability. Before the raid, Monis had demanded a flag and phone call with Abbott. CNN affiliate Sky News Australia reported. He made the demands through hostages who contacted media organisations, Sky News reported. Some hostages had also reportedly posted messages to social networking sites and the YouTube online video service. Police urged media early Tuesday not to show the videos. Monis, also known as Sheikh Heron, pleaded guilty in 2013 to writing letters to relatives of Australian service members saying they were Hitler's soldiers, according to Australian media reports. He was believed to be acting alone, and he didn't appear to be part of a broader plot, additional U.S. law enforcement and intelligence sources said. How the siege unfolded. Hundreds of police officers, including snipers, surrounded the cafe in Sydney's central business district shortly after the gunman took over the building at 10 a.m. Monday, 6 p.m. ET Sunday. Chilling images from Australian media showed people, believed to be hostages, with their hands pressed against the cafe's windows. They were holding up a black flag with Arabic writing on it reading, "There is no God but God and Mohammed is the Prophet of God." 5 hostages sprinted out of the cafe toward heavily armed police officers several hours into the standoff, sending the gunman into a tirade, according to an Australian reporter. Chris Reason, a correspondent for CNN affiliate 7 Network, said the gunman became extremely agitated when he realized what had happened and started screaming orders at the remaining hostages. Reason said he could see the gunman pacing past the cafe's windows from his vantage point at the network's nearby offices. He described the man as unshaved, wearing a white shirt and black cap and carrying a shotgun. As night fell, lights went out in the cafe, Reason reported. After a tense night, police could be seen early Tuesday throwing flashbang grenades into the cafe in video aired by 7 Network. Gunfire erupted amid the chaos. A national security source in the United States said that a team of Australian Special Forces troops and police had entered the Lindt Chocolate Cafe from 2 directions and killed the gunman. Video captured medics working on some people and others being carried away on stretchers. On Tuesday, one of the 2 hostages who died was identified as Katrina Dawson. Katrina was one of our best and brightest barristers who will be greatly missed by her colleagues and friends at the NSW Bar, the New South Wales Bar Association said in a statement. She was a devoted mother of 3 children and a valued member of her floor and of our bar community. Our thoughts are with her family at this time, CNN's Anna Coren reported from Sydney, Michael Pearson reported and wrote from Atlanta, and Jethro Mullen reported and wrote from Hong Kong. CNN's Dana Ford, Hilary Whiteman, Ewan Mickety, Chu Luu, Elizabeth Joseph and Kush Bashar also contributed to this report.